I've got 9 super handy tricks that are going to help you play with and play against the knights. Trick number 1 is what's called the Legal's Mate Trap, and it starts out of an e4 opening where somebody decides to pin your knight on f3 to the queen. As soon as you see this bishop go to g4, that's when you want to start thinking about the Legal's Mate Trap. And to do it, you're going to need your knight on c3 because that's going to play an important role. And now what you're looking for is your opponent to waste a move. So something like a6 or h6, or kind of a wasted move that doesn't defend their bishop. And if they do that, you've got them. And you can play knight takes e5, sacrificing this knight. And the point is that if they take your knight, well, you're going to take their bishop. And most of you are saying, but Nelson, we're about to lose our queen here. That's why they pinned us, because we can't move our knight, right? Wrong. If they take the queen, they've fallen for your trap. Bishop takes f7 is check. It's defended by the knight here. So they have to play king to e7. And then this knight, remember that I said it was important, delivers the final blow. This is actually checkmate in just 7 moves. It's one of the most satisfying ways to win a game of chess. And it's actually more common than you think. Now, I do want to point out an important part about the Legal's Mate Trap is that this bishop has to be undefended. So if they play knight to f6, unfortunately, the trick doesn't work anymore because now they just take your knight and we don't have the follow-up of capturing the bishop or we lose our queen, right? So that's an important feature. Make sure you pay attention whether or not the bishop is defended before you go sacrificing your knight on e5. Trick number 2 is the knight a4 queen trap. We're going to move our knight over here and we're going to trap black's queen. And if you've never seen this before, you're probably thinking, Nelson, what? What are you talking about? Well, this is actually more common than you might think. Let me show you how this happens. Out of the Sicilian, okay, this is the main line of the Sicilian defense. They take, you take, they attack your pawn on e4 here, you defend it with your knight, a6, bishop g5. These are all very common moves, f4. And now they play queen to b6, and they're attacking your pawn on b2. So what should you do? Should you bring your rook over to defend it? Should you play b3, but that creates a bunch of weaknesses? Should you use your queen? Do you really want your queen babysitting a little pawn? No, you don't. The move that you should play, wait for it, is a3. And it looks like a weird, kind of a cryptic move, like what is going on? It's actually setting a very nasty queen trap, and if they take your pawn, you've got them. Knight to a4, like I mentioned, attacks the queen, and let us look carefully. You can't go there, you can't go there, you can't go there, you can't go there, you can't go here because the rook, or here because the rook, or here because the rook. You can't take the rook because the queen. That's defended, this is defended. Black's queen is totally trapped on move 9, just like that. So if you play this, e4 and you're facing the Sicilian, pay attention, and next time they attack your pawn over here on b2, maybe think about the move a3 and see if you can set up a queen trap. You're going to get a lot of people who are unfamiliar with this. Okay, so that's a really good one. Don't forget knight a4 queen trap. Trick number 3 is the avoid the pesky knight checks trick. And it looks something like that. Well, first I want to give you an example. Let's say you're playing this game and black brings the knight in, puts you in check, and you're like, well, I got to move somewhere. Let me just go up, get my king towards the center. Boom, you walk into another check. Like, man, let me get away from this. Boom, you walk into another check, and all the while you're losing all your pawns, right? How many of you have had this happen before, right? Maybe you're a beginner, or maybe you're an intermediate or advanced player, but when you get into time pressure, the knights just start jumping all over the place and you find yourself getting into trouble. I'm going to give you a very simple thing you can do, actually 2 things you can do to stop this from happening. Number 1, whenever you are put in check from a knight, if you want to move close to the knight and attack it, always move straight so that you're either directly below, directly above, or on the side of the knight like this. Okay? Do you see that pattern? That's where you want to go because now the knight can't put you in check. It takes at least 2 moves. If you go on a diagonal, they're always going to have checks immediately available. See, there's 2 checks, right? So you want to avoid going on the diagonal. You want to go straight. Now, another trick is if you are going to move on the diagonal, move where there's a space in between. And this is actually even better for avoiding checks because now it takes the knight 3 moves to be able to check you. For example, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. That's a very long time. It gives you essentially 3 moves. You don't have to worry about your king anymore. You can move other pieces and you know you're not going to be put into check. Okay, so next time you find yourself being checked by a knight, either move forward and straight to attack it, or if you're going to move on the diagonal, leave a space in between and you know you've got 3 moves. Right, number 4 is the Hungry Horses trick. Now, Hungry Horses is an app which you can download for free. I actually have it on my phone right now, so I'm going to look down here at my phone, and I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. Hungry Horses, essentially, you have a knight, and you have to capture, in this case, it's a red apple, the fruit, or whatever. There's some other objects that can pop up. You have to capture it in the shortest amount of time possible, and you have to do it without getting captured by any of the opponent's pieces. So, for example, I couldn't move here. I would get captured. That's not the correct solution, okay? What this is going to do is help you train your night visualization skills, okay? So you have to do it as quickly as you can. So it helps you work on what's the shortest path to get there, but at the same time, you have to avoid your opponent's pieces. And what I like about Hungry Horses is the opponent's pieces don't move. So you don't have to like calculate, like they're gonna move here and I'm gonna move there. Like, it just helps you isolate the night visualization skill that you're trying to work on, which is fantastic. So if I'm looking at this, how do I get to the apple the fastest? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, da, 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 da. So I think it's gonna be like this, like this, like this, and like this. And a lot of times there's multiple solutions. That's just the one that I saw. Let's do one more. Yeah, I had the misstep because I was showing you what happened, so I lost the points. Let's go to the next one. Okay, here we go again. Trying to get to the apple, but I have to avoid the knight. I have to avoid the black pawn. So the first move, I have to obviously go there. Then it looks like I can jump over here, avoid the knight, and let me jump over here and grab the apple. So you can see how I'm working on, okay, how do I get there? But at the same time, I'm avoiding black's pieces. This is a fantastic way to do this because you can do puzzles on chess.com, but you're not going to get the same effect, right? It's just different. This isolates the skill of night visualization. I'm going to put a link in the description. Actually, what I recommend you do, pause the video, go download that, practice a little bit, have that ready for next time you're ready to practice, and then when you're ready, we'll resume the video. All right, number 5 is the sneaky pawn grab trick. And this one is something that happens a lot of the times when your opponent has pushed their D pawn forward. Okay, so this is an example. And then you can go here, they pin you, you play bishop to E7, and they don't see what's happening. They play knight to D2. Now, whenever you have your queen and your bishop lined up on the bishop on G5, and there's a piece sitting on D5, you can actually capture it essentially for free with your knight. Because if they take your knight, it unleashes your bishop-queen combo, and you're going to get your piece right back, and you got a free pawn in the process. And if they try to trade their bishop off first, thinking that they'll take your knight the next move, you actually capture with that knight, moving it to safety. And again, we snagged the pawn on D5 for free. Okay, this is a very overlooked tactic that a lot of people miss. And you can also do it. Here's another example. In a game like this, where they bring their knight forward. Now it's even better for you, because now you're able to do it and grab the piece, and you can still bring your knight to safety. Now, in this case, there's a little tactic here where they actually can take with the pawn, and even though we get the piece here, they get the piece here. So it's, it doesn't quite work out as good as we would like. But the point is, always keep an eye out when they have the bishop on G5. You have your queen and bishop battery. Keep an eye out for this knight takes D5 tactic, whether there's a pawn or a piece there. A lot of times you can snag that for free, and it's a very overlooked tactic, like I mentioned. Number 6 is the poisoned pawn trick. And what this looks like is you're playing against somebody who's bringing out their queen, and they're trying to attack either the G2 or the B2 pawn. Okay, it works on both sides. In this case, it's on this side, where G2 pawn. And what a lot of people do is like, oh, okay, I don't want to, let them take that. Maybe I'll defend it with my king. Maybe I'll defend it with my bishop. Maybe I'll block with the pawn. But a lot of the times, the best thing to do is ignore it and leave it become what's called a poisoned pawn in chess. A poisoned pawn is like, it's a pawn that you can take, but you don't really want to take it because something bad's going to happen. So what you need to do is play knight to F3 here and allow them to take it. And what you're trying to do is follow up with rook to G1. And notice how the knight supports the rook, supports this pawn, and it's defended. This is important. It has to be defended with something. In this case, it's very well defended, but you do have to make sure that that knight's going to be defended. Otherwise, you'll just be losing your knight, right? But if you can achieve this, what ends up happening is you have an active rook. Usually you gain some tempo with some of your other pieces. And a lot of times the queen gets in big, big trouble. Okay, so this is my preferred way to handle. Like 9 times out of 10, I'm going to do this if somebody attacks my G2 or my B2 pawn, unless it's very clear and obvious there's some reason I can't. Otherwise, I'm absolutely going to do it. And usually the pressure that you get is worth sacrificing that pawn. Number 7 is one of my favorites. It's the Smothered Checkmate trick with the knight. What that means is your opponent's king is so surrounded by their own pieces that the knight delivers the checkmate, okay? And a lot of people think, oh, Smothered Checkmate's so rare, like it never happens. But it's actually, if you're paying attention and you're kind of looking for it, it comes up more than you think. And I'm going to show you an actual game here out of the King's Gambit where we see a real Smothered Checkmate, okay? So black captures, we bring our knight out, g5, d4, g4, the knight jumps in. King's Gambit is one of those crazy openings where all sorts of wild stuff happens, and that's what we see here. g3 takes. Look at this crazy move. Black temporarily sacrifices the queen because they're going to be able to recapture and get a new one, and white goes for it. Okay, so black gets the queen back. White just says, well, I better just keep attacking. Goes for a checkmate threat here on f7. By the way, these are two strong players. But look what happens now. Takes this, the knight comes out, and there's actually a win for white. If you would like to pause, how does white win the game from here in incredible style? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is knight to d6 double check, which is important because otherwise black was about to take our queen. So the king has to move. If you go here, you just get checkmated right away. So you have to go over here, and this allows us to set up the Smothered Checkmate. Queen to e8 is attacking the king. It's defended by the knight, so the king is unable to take. Black is forced to capture with one of these two pieces, and guess what? It doesn't matter. You've got knight to f7 checkmate. This is what Smothered Checkmate looks like. There are different ways that it can happen, but this is one of the common ones, and here we go again, another example. Beautiful, beautiful way to win a game of chess. Smothered Checkmate, be on the lookout. It has to, usually it's the queen and the knight that are lined up on the king like this. When the queen is behind the knight, that's usually when you want to start thinking about Smothered Checkmate opportunities. In this case, it works out perfectly. All right, and our last two tricks have to do with using knights to defend your king. So the first one is the defend against a queen trick. If you ever find yourself being attacked by a queen and you have the option to block with a knight, 9 times out of 10 you should do it, because the knight is one of the best defenders against a queen check. If you look carefully, white would like to keep attacking, right? They can't go here because our knight. They can't go here because our knight. They can't take that pawn because our knight. They can't go here because of our knight. All of the checks are covered by our knight, which makes it great. It's one piece, a lower valued piece than the queen, and yet it defends everything that the queen is trying to do. So whenever you're put in check with the queen, try to block with the knight. It's usually going to be your best defending piece, okay? All right, and then number 9 on our list is the knight f8 trick. There's a saying in chess, with a knight on f8, there's no mate. And if you look at the board, f8 is right here. What is that talking about? Well, let me show you a game. So a lot of times when you're playing as black, you're going to castle kingside. And if you're playing against somebody, particularly this happens in d4 openings, if you're playing against somebody who's going to line up something here and try to attack you, you have to be careful, especially if they are smart enough to put it this way, where the queen is in front of the bishop. This is very, very dangerous. And if you don't know what you're doing, you could very easily lose this game, right? Because if they're able to figure out how to get rid of your knight here, this could simply be checkmate. So one of the things that I like to do is put my knight on f8. And you'll notice that on f8, it defends the h7 square. So if white were to try to take here and then checkmate us, it's not checkmate. We just take it. And the nice thing about the knight being on f8 is, how is white going to capture this? Like, how are they going to get rid of this knight? There's like no way. It's just going to sit there and defend this pawn as long as we need it to. And even if they attack us this way with like a rook or something later, we can play knight to g6 and block off the g file. And so this is a very simple thing you can do if you want to defend, is particularly the h7 or the g file. Put your knight there and it's ready to go at any moment if you need to. You can even use it to attack at some point in the future. So knight to f8, with a knight on f8, there is no mate. Guys, I hope you learned something from this video. Make sure you go download Hungry Horses and start practicing your knight visualization. That's going to be crucial. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.